Dwight David Eisenhower, a name that conjures images of D-Day landings, presidential debates, and yes, golf courses. Born in 1890 in Denison, Texas, Eisenhower's journey from a modest railroad town to the Oval Office is nothing short of epic. But this isn't just the story of a war hero. It's the tale of a man who bridged the chaos of war and the tranquility of peace with a trademark grin and unshakable resolve. Let's rewind to the beginning. Eisenhower, known as Ike to his friends and, well, pretty much everyone, was the third of 7 sons. His family relocated to Abilene, Kansas, where young Ike grew up on a steady diet of hard work, discipline, and no doubt his mother's strict pacifist teachings. Little did she know her son would grow up to lead one of the largest military operations in history. Fast forward to 1911, when Ike entered the U.S. Military Academy at West Point. Fun fact, he almost didn't make it. His initial application was rejected because of a minor clerical error, but persistence paid off, and soon he was rubbing elbows with future generals and strategists. At West Point, Eisenhower excelled at football, until a knee injury ended his dreams of athletic glory. But don't worry, Ike's knack for strategy would soon find another outlet. In 1915, Eisenhower graduated and entered the Army as a second lieutenant. Now, if you're thinking this is where he charges into battle and earns his stripes, think again. During World War I, Ike was assigned to training tank crews stateside, much to his frustration. He once joked that his entire wartime experience involved battling the prairie dogs of Kansas. But Eisenhower wasn't one to sulk. Instead, he used this time to hone his leadership skills, building a reputation as a meticulous planner and a natural leader. By the 1930s, he caught the eye of General Douglas MacArthur, who recruited him as an aide in the Philippines. MacArthur's flamboyance contrasted sharply with Eisenhower's practicality, but the duo worked well together. Ike later joked that he learned 2 things from MacArthur: what to do, and more importantly, what not to do. Now, let's skip to the big leagues, World War II. By 1941, Eisenhower had risen through the ranks, impressing his superiors with his ability to organize complex operations. When the US entered the war, Ike was tapped to lead the Allied invasion of North Africa in 1942. Operation Torch was a baptism by fire, but Eisenhower proved his mettle, balancing egos and strategies across a coalition of nations. But the real test came on June 6, 1944, D-Day. As Supreme Allied Commander, Eisenhower orchestrated Operation Overlord, the largest amphibious invasion in history. Picture it, over 156,000 troops storming the beaches of Normandy, all under Ike's watchful eye. The stakes? The fate of Europe. No pressure, right? Before the invasion, Eisenhower famously drafted 2 statements, one celebrating victory and another accepting full responsibility in case of failure. Talk about accountability. The operation was a success, and Eisenhower became a household name, the face of Allied victory. Yet even in triumph, Ike remained humble, crediting the troops and downplaying his own role. He didn't just lead armies, he inspired them. With the war over, Eisenhower faced a new challenge: peace. In 1948, he became president of Columbia University, a job he described as the toughest he ever had. Academia wasn't exactly his forte, but it did give him a taste of civilian leadership. In 1950, President Truman asked Eisenhower to become the first Supreme Commander of NATO. Ike accepted, proving once again that he was the man for the job, whether it was leading soldiers or diplomats. By 1952, Americans were clamoring for Eisenhower to run for president. Initially reluctant, Ike eventually threw his hat in the ring, running as a Republican. His campaign slogan, "I like Ike," was as catchy as it was effective. Eisenhower's down-to-earth demeanor and wartime heroics won over voters, and he trounced Democratic candidate Adlai Stevenson. As president, Eisenhower faced a turbulent world. The Cold War was in full swing, and the threat of nuclear annihilation loomed large. But Ike wasn't one for saber-rattling. His new look policy emphasized deterrence through strength while avoiding unnecessary conflict. He also championed the Interstate Highway System, a project that revolutionized American infrastructure and, let's be honest, made road trips a lot easier. But not everything was smooth sailing. The civil rights movement was gaining momentum, and Eisenhower's response was, at times, cautious. However, he made a historic move in 1957 by sending federal troops to Little Rock, Arkansas, to enforce school desegregation. It was a pivotal moment in the fight for equality, showing that even a reserved leader like Ike could take bold action when needed. On the international stage, Eisenhower navigated crises like the Suez Canal standoff and the escalating tensions in Southeast Asia. His administration also launched NASA in response to the Soviet Union's Sputnik, proving that America wasn't about to fall behind in the space race. By 1961, Eisenhower was ready to step down, leaving the presidency after 2 terms. In his farewell address, he warned against the growing influence of the military-industrial complex, a term that has since become synonymous with unchecked power and influence in defense and politics. Ever the strategist, Ike saw the importance of balance, even as he left the political arena. Retirement didn't mean idleness for Eisenhower. He returned to his beloved Gettysburg farm, where he wrote memoirs, hosted dignitaries, and of course, hit the golf course. Ike's passion for the game was legendary, earning him the nickname, the Golfer-in-Chief. Dwight D. Eisenhower passed away on March 28, 1969, at the age of 78. His legacy endures as one of America's most respected leaders, a man who guided the nation through war and peace with integrity, humility, and that ever-present grin. What made Dwight D. Eisenhower such an effective leader? It wasn't flashy speeches or grandstanding. It was his ability to stay calm under pressure, methodically analyze complex situations, and make tough decisions with confidence. Whether commanding the Allied forces in World War II or sitting behind the resolute desk in the Oval Office, Ike's leadership philosophy was rooted in preparation, pragmatism, and people skills. One of Eisenhower's most famous sayings was, "Plans are worthless, but planning is everything." What did he mean by that? Essentially, Ike believed that while no plan survives first contact with reality, the process of planning forces leaders to think critically, anticipate challenges, and adapt when things inevitably go sideways. This mindset proved invaluable during Operation Overlord, where the chaotic nature of war demanded constant adjustments to the meticulously crafted invasion strategy. Another hallmark of Ike's leadership style was his ability to delegate. He wasn't a micromanager, and he didn't pretend to have all the answers. Instead, he surrounded himself with capable individuals, listened to their advice, and trusted them to execute their responsibilities. During the D-Day invasion, for instance, Eisenhower relied heavily on subordinates like General Omar Bradley and British Field Marshal Bernard Montgomery to lead their respective forces. His ability to balance egos and build consensus among a diverse group of leaders was nothing short of masterful. And then there was Ike's unshakable optimism. Even in the darkest moments of World War II, he had a knack for boosting morale. Soldiers admired him not just for his strategic brilliance, but for his approachable, down-to-earth demeanor. He often visited troops on the front lines, shaking hands and sharing smiles that inspired confidence in the mission ahead. Eisenhower's leadership extended beyond the battlefield. As president, he applied the same principles to governing a nation. Whether dealing with Cold War tensions or domestic challenges, Ike emphasized preparation, calm decision-making, and unity. He famously said, "Leadership is the art of getting someone else to do something you want done because he wants to do it." In short, Eisenhower wasn't just a great leader because of his titles or achievements. He was a great leader because of his ability to inspire others, remain steady in the face of chaos, and never lose sight of the bigger picture. His approach offers lessons not just for generals or presidents, but for anyone striving to lead effectively in uncertain times. Dwight D. Eisenhower wasn't just a brilliant military strategist. He was a master diplomat. Leading the Allies during World War II wasn't just about commanding troops. It was about managing a delicate coalition of nations, each with its own priorities, personalities, and politics. The British, Americans, and Soviets didn't always see eye to eye, but Ike had a remarkable ability to smooth over tensions and foster collaboration. He wasn't afraid to sit down with Winston Churchill or Charles de Gaulle, navigating their quirks and egos with a blend of patience and pragmatism. Churchill once described him as the most unselfish man I've ever known, a testament to Ike's commitment to unity over personal glory. But Eisenhower's diplomatic finesse didn't end with the war. As president, he carried those skills into the Cold War, where the stakes were nothing short of global survival. His Eisenhower Doctrine extended U.S. support to Middle Eastern nations resisting Soviet influence, showcasing his ability to balance strength with restraint. Rather than escalating conflicts, Ike often sought peaceful resolutions, such as defusing the Suez Crisis in 1956 by urging restraint on both Britain and Egypt. Eisenhower understood that winning wars was one thing, but winning peace required a whole different set of skills. His ability to build bridges, both literal and figurative, remains a cornerstone of his enduring legacy. So next time you're cruising down an interstate or enjoying a weekend on the links, spare a thought for Ike. He wasn't just a general or a president. He was a unifier, a builder, and above all, a leader who truly earned the trust of a nation. And that's why decades later we still like Ike.